The Tailor's Daughter. Once a father's hands stitched wonder. Silks for queens and warlords, spun with gold from the east and gems from the west. Caravans carried his robes across the Silk Road, through deserts of fire and snow-blind mountains, where merchants whispered his name in awe. But war stole his sons, and grief stilled his fingers. There had been 4 of them once, 3 sons to carry the name, and 1 daughter in the shadows. But war came, and 2 sons were buried in foreign dust. The 3rd returned on crutches, silent and broken, and their mother, whose laughter once warmed the shop, faded like a breath expelled in the cold. Now the father stitched no more. He sat beside her empty chair, eyes clouded like old glass. And Maia, quiet Maia, picked up the needle they dropped. In the shadow of that vanished splendour, his daughter stitched by candlelight. Her robes bore no jewels, only precision. Her thread knew the silence of loss and the quiet defiance of dreams not spoken aloud. No one looked to daughters for greatness. But she watched, she waited, and she learned. One morning, a rider brought word from the palace. The emperor sought a new royal tailor. 12 would be summoned, 1 would be chosen. The summons trembled in her father's hands, hands that once stitched brocade, now frail with grief. Beside him, her brother stood silent, his leg twisted and still. Neither spoke, but Maia understood. A royal summons could not be ignored. And so it would be her hands that carried their name forward. The night before she left, her father placed a bundle in her lap. Inside, food, thread, and an old pair of shears. "They were your grandmother's," he said, voice brittle with memory. "No one's been able to wake him since she died. Not me, not your mother, but perhaps..." He looked away. "Perhaps they were waiting for you." Women were forbidden to sew for the emperor. So at first light, Maia bound her chest and tied her hair, taking her father's name as a shield and a disguise. She stitched her courage into every fold of her robe and tucked the golden shears into her satchel. A legacy passed down in silence and hope. Then she stepped onto the road, toward the emperor's court, toward the impossible. She arrived at the palace, rising like a dream carved from stone and sky. 12 tailors stood at its gates, their robes heavy with gold and pride. She stood among them, silent, slight, unseen, but her hands were steady, her eyes unshaken. Each had come to claim glory. She had come for her family's name and for their very survival. They were to stitch garments for the future empress, a king's daughter, brokered for peace. Their efforts would be judged, and if found unworthy, they would be sent away. The tailors spoke in clipped words and cold glances. They measured each other with every stitch. Maia kept her head down, her voice low. The risk was great. One mistake, and things would unravel as surely as a loose garment thread. Day by day, the palace became a battleground, not of swords, but of stitch and scissor. The other tailors sabotaged her spools, mocked her seams, whispered of weakness and women's ways. But Maia's hands did not falter. She sewed through silence. She stitched through sleep. She did not need to be seen. She only needed to survive. She met the future empress only once, a woman crowned in gold but draped in silence. Her smile was fine silk, her voice a careful stitch, but her eyes were threadbare with longing, for freedom, for a life not chosen for her. Maia lowered her eyes, and the empire's bride, in that brief glance, seemed to say, "I see you." When the final robe was hemmed and the last thread tied, 11 tailors were dismissed. Only Maia remained, though none knew her name. To them, she was a quiet boy, with clever hands. The emperor handed her a scroll, the final trial. 3 gowns, he said, fit for the gods themselves. 1 sewn from the laughter of the sun, 1 from the tears of the moon, and 1 from the blood of stars. Maia bowed her head and accepted the challenge. That night, Maia unrolled the scroll in her quarters. Laughter of the sun, tears of the moon, blood of the stars. She traced the words with trembling fingers. No tailor, not even her father, could have imagined such a task. And yet, she could not turn back. The stakes were high. Her family's name hung by a thread. The danger greater still, for discovery meant death. At dawn, Maia rode from the palace gates. She had been summoned, tested, chosen, and now she would be sent across the empire to seek what could not be bought. Laughter of the sun, tears of the moon, blood of the stars. She rode alone, her satchel tied close, the scroll sealed in red wax pressing against her ribs like a second heartbeat. The palace walls loomed behind her, stone, shadow, silence. Before her, desert, mountains, wind, and wonder. First, she rode to the desert. 3 gowns, the emperor had said, fit for the gods themselves, 1 sewn from the laughter of the sun. The desert burned like a breathless forge. Sand swallowed her steps. The sun beat down without mercy. Maia pressed forward. Her lips were cracked. Her cloak clung to her back with sweat. Deep in her satchel, the scissors stirred. Not with sound, but with a shimmer. A heat-hummed promise that she was not alone. The scissors lifted, weightless in her hand. They turned toward the sky, as if they could see. Then a single beam of sunlight bent toward her, and the blades began to cut. Not cloth, not thread, but light itself. Heat shimmered into gold, and from the rippling heat came silk finer than air, a strand of joy, of warmth, of the sun's laughter drawn into being by her grandmother's gift. She left the heat behind. The mountains rose like stone prayers, steep and solemn beneath a winter moon. Maia climbed in silence. Her hands ached. Her breath stung her throat. Frost bloomed on her lashes. The emperor's words echoed through the cold. 1 gown sewn from the tears of the moon. And there it was. Not in the sky, but in the shimmer of ice on rock, in the silver breath that vanished into the dark. The scissors shivered in her hand. Not from cold, but from something older, something that had waited lifetimes to wake. She held them aloft, and the moon answered. A tear of light dripped from a frozen ledge. Frost shimmered like silk across the snow. Her grandmother's blades whispered through the air, gathering silver breath, pale shadows, and stillness, spinning it into thread softer than sorrow. At the mountain's summit, she found a still pool, black as obsidian and silent as sleep. The sky lay beneath its surface, stars unmoving, watching. She knelt beside the water. When the scissors touched the surface, the stars bled upward, rising in silver threads toward her open hands. The final gown would be stitched from the blood of the stars. Upon her return to the palace, Maia was given little space, and even less time to complete her task. Only a loom, a needle, and thread that shimmered when the light touched it. Maia unpacked the silks she had spun, sunlight warm against her fingers, moonlight cool as river water, starlight pulsing with secrets. She laid them out and knelt, her hands trembling, not with fear, but with reverence. She was ready. She stitched until the lamps went out. The golden thread sang with warmth. The silver thread shimmered like frost. The starlight thread pulsed with memory, and when she laid down her needle, 3 gowns waited in silence. One for day, one for night, one for all that lay between. They were not made by a tailor. They were made by a girl who gathered the whispers of those before her to stitch a beginning for those to come. The time came for Maia to present her work. The gowns shimmered, gold like dawn, silver like snow, blue like starlit sky. The court fell silent. Whispers rose, then grew louder. She's no man. The future empress was silent, her expression unreadable, but she had seen the truth. The way the girl stood, the way she worked, not a boy, and not just a tailor. Something else. Something that stirred the quiet ache of a life shaped by others' hands. For a moment, her gaze lingered. She saw in Maia what she had never been allowed to be. And though her face remained still, she gave the smallest nod. Not of permission, but of recognition. She would remain behind, robed in duty. But this girl would walk free. In the end, they offered her title, chambers, cloth, and coin. But Maia had felt something grander. Thread that danced at her fingers, colours that answered only to her. Her gift was born of women who had never been welcomed to court. She would not lay it down in service to the ones who had closed the gates. So she bowed, not to the throne, but to the legacy behind her, and walked away with the shears tucked close and the world ahead wide open. The end. Though the empire of Alandi is fictional, the world of Spin the Dawn, the novel upon which this fairy tale is based, draws heavily from the traditions and histories of Imperial China. The civil war that haunts the story is not based on a specific real-world conflict, but echoes the dynastic struggles and fractured courts found throughout East Asian history. In this patriarchal society, women are barred from trades like tailoring and confined to domestic roles, their talents often hidden or dismissed. Against this backdrop of grief and restriction, Maia's journey, disguised as a boy to compete for the title of Imperial Tailor, is both a personal quest and a quiet rebellion against the world that denies her. Elizabeth Lim's Spin the Dawn is a young adult fantasy novel set in a richly imagined world inspired by East Asian cultures and mythologies. The story follows Maia, the daughter of a once renowned tailor. In a patriarchal kingdom where women are forbidden from pursuing certain trades, Maia disguises herself as a boy to take her ailing father's place when the emperor summons tailors to compete for the role of Imperial Tailor. At court, Maia must compete against 11 skilled and often ruthless male tailors. She uses not only her training and talent, but also a pair of magical scissors, an heirloom passed down from her grandmother that seems to respond only to her touch. The competition takes a magical turn when Maia is tasked with an impossible challenge: to sew 3 legendary gowns for the future empress, one from the laughter of the sun, one from the tears of the moon, and one from the blood of stars. To complete this task, Maia must go on a perilous journey across the kingdom, accompanied by Eden, the emperor's mysterious court enchanter. Along the way, she confronts mythical creatures, treacherous landscapes, and her own fears and doubts. As Maia begins to unravel Eden's secrets, she must also reckon with her growing feelings for him and the terrible price of his power. Ultimately, Spin the Dawn is a story of hidden strength, sacrifice, legacy, and the transformative power of art and love. It's the first book in the Blood of Stars duology,